Hi everyone, looking forward to the webinar, looking forward to what lies ahead. The topic today is, are you planning a migration to Atlassian Cloud? And we're going to discuss how to access it with ease. So I'm the host today, my name is Ari Frankel, I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Easy Agile. My job is actually to understand our customer base and focus on solving long-term needs. And we've got a couple of experts from Accenture here. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure, Ari. Hey everyone, my name is Meet. I'm part of Accenture ANZ's business agility practice, and within the practice, I lead the ALM tooling space. So all the product suites, right, like Atlassian, non-Atlassian product suites, I sort of lead from that perspective. But at the same time, I'm agilist at heart.
Nice to meet you all. My name is Nick Pulse, well, at least virtually anyway. My name is Nick Pulse. I run the Accenture Business Agility practice across the Australia and New Zealand region. My responsibilities are to help build an amazing practice within Accenture, and ALM tooling is a key part of that, and how that works in conjunction with the ways of working to help amplify and optimize the ways of working for people, so they have a really great experience through their agile journey.
Yeah, nice. Okay. And I'm guessing both of you are quite experienced with migrations. So from your perspective, what would you say a successful cloud migration looks like?
Sure. So I think, in my view, first and foremost, it's critical to acknowledge that moving to cloud is a collaborative effort between the client, Atlassian, the solution partners, and obviously the marketplace app vendors, right? So it's more like a joint team sport. So in my view, one of the core elements that lays down a solid foundation of a successful cloud migration is having a super engaged collaborative team working towards a common goal or a joint outcome. So that brings us to the next important aspect of defining a successful cloud migration, right? So having a common, clearly defined goal that aligns everyone on why move to cloud is another crucial aspect, because at the end of the day, it's not just about moving the data from one platform to another platform. So super important to have that long-term vision in place, with clearly defined and ideally co-designed set of success measures. Once we have got this in place, like any other organizational initiative, giving this core team the ability to focus on the task at hand is really, really important, which means at org level, just like any other initiative goes through its own life cycle around refinement, prioritization, before it actually lands into the execution space. A cloud migration should really be looked at another initiative that goes through the same process and steps, and that basically ensures that the team who's going to execute the migration has got a clear view of the priorities, as well as a set capacity which is set aside so that they can focus on the cloud migration. Right. And then obviously, when we talk from the execution side of things, in my view, there are again two broad categories that define the success. One is obviously the technical side of things, and then we've also got the soft side of things, or the people management or non-technical side of things, right? So from a technical perspective, obviously we want to ensure that as part of the cloud migration, all the relevant data, historical, current, or future, is moved across with potentially no impacts to the integrity of the data, i.e. no loss of data or missing links or missing attachments, etc., etc. But from a non-technical perspective, it's really, really important to bear in mind that at the end of the day, it is humans are, to be honest, an entire human system interacting with the data that is being migrated. So a good, successful cloud migration should consider moving this entire human system, their user experiences, and the way they interact with the data, which is essentially their ways of working, from one platform to another platform. So I think in summary, a successful cloud migration is the one that is backed by a good, solid long-term vision, fueled by a motivated and highly collaborative team that has got the ability to not just successfully migrate the data from a technical perspective, but having a robust change management strategy in place that successfully enables the users to work more effectively on a cloud platform.
Yeah, nice. That's a really good answer. And you've almost answered my next question, but I still wanted to dig into it a little bit more. And that's why you think that a cloud migration strategy can't be planned in isolation from the rest of the business.
Sure, Ari. And that's a very interesting question as well, right? Because as I mentioned, being an agile practitioner at heart, I see agility at the core of everything that we do, right? So, uh, Agile Principles talks about the importance of software and product development teams working closely with business on a daily basis, right? This goes on to say the importance of breaking these organizational silos at the end of the day. And from a cloud migration perspective, it is really important to understand who the real customers are. And business stakeholders within the organization are going to be one of the prime consumers and users of these platforms, right? And secondly, it's also imperative to assume and expect that depending on any organization's maturity and the type of products being considered for this cloud migration, we would have teams impacted by it, and those teams would have people from business working as part of those long standing team constructs, which raises another good point to show that we don't essentially leave the business out from this entire strategy.
Yeah.
And thirdly, and most importantly, Atlassian products like Jira, your Confluence, the Jira Service Management, along with this ecosystem of plugins, will inevitably or imminently will have those dependent technical and business processes integrated with these platforms. So after the move to cloud, essentially the overall user experience and some of the functionalities around these Atlassian cloud products will change, and will change for the good, right? But at the end of the day, the end users and the consumers of this Atlassian product suite would be expected to do things a bit differently than what they are usually accustomed to do. So hence, you should not leave business out of the loop, as a good migration strategy or a roadmap towards cloud migration should consider and have an in-depth understanding of all of these nitty-gritties around interdependencies between different areas of business, etc. Not sure, Nick, if you would like to add.
I'm going to add, your answers are very elaborate, Mitch, so I'm going to jump in very quickly with kind of my 2 cents worth as well. So, a cloud migration is an initiative, and it's just another initiative on the freeway of other initiatives an organisation might have at any given point in time. And we need to understand the broader business context when we're pursuing a cloud migration agenda or initiative. Like, there might be some really important business context, might be a business critical period in which we shouldn't really make any changes in terms of migrating data and things of that nature. So understanding the organisational context in which this Jira migration initiative is operating within is a really important consideration for the development of your roadmap and your strategy around the migration to cloud.
Yeah, nice. Okay. It sounds, but by the way, that both of you are talking that you've seen examples of a successful migration firsthand. So based on that, what examples have you got?
Sure, Ari. So, while we've got a few active conversations going on with some of our clients at the moment, last year we did deliver a successful ServiceNow to JSM cloud migration for a subsidiary of a large telco provider within the ANZ region. And the whole intention of that initiative was to create a common workbench for DevOps teams and a single front door entry for enterprise service management by migrating the data, agents, and the organization's ITSM processes onto Jira Service Management Cloud platform, enabling effective collaboration via tools and transform processes and ways of working across delivery and operations team by bringing them under a single Atlassian umbrella.
Yeah, okay. And what would you say about this example that made it successful? What was it that made it successful for you and for them?
Yeah, I think, I'd probably, to answer this question, I'd again go back to my response to the first question, Ari. Like, uh, having a super engaged, collaborative, blended team, right? It's, cloud migration is something that one should not plan for in isolation. So with this client of ours, what we had was we had a blended team. So we had team members from the client organization. We had Accenture folks coming in with this technical expertise, and then we had also partnered with Atlassian. So it was bringing the best of all the aspects into the mix and working together towards a joint outcome. So that really helped because we as Accenture people can come in from a technical expert perception, but as Nick mentioned, it's really important to understand the organizational context, which is where the power of the organization investing the capacity in their own people to do this the right way comes into play, and then obviously Atlassian being the leaders in developing some of these cloud products and platforms. So it was a true collaborative effort in my view. And probably the second point that I could really think about that really made this migration a real success was when we started thinking about this initiative along with the client. There were a number of other initiatives in play, and for this particular thing, it was really a prioritization call that was made by the organization, because at the end of the day, all of these initiatives around Atlassian Product Suite were impacting the same set of teams, same set of stakeholders, etc. So it was a conscious decision that this client made to deprioritize some of those initiatives and see through this migration first, and then again reprioritize some of the other initiatives, which in my view, if I look at it retrospectively, made a huge impact.
And I think maybe another critical success factor, I mean, I know this was the case on your example as well, is engaging external stakeholders or relevant stakeholders within the organisation very early. So, security, risk, compliance are the key ones that, engage them early in the process, give them the access to the information they need very early on. So, they're in the tent and they can help unlock the outcome for you. Because I've seen many organisations fail to engage them in a timely manner, and they do so at the last minute, and it gets blocked, and there's unnecessary delays. So getting internal stakeholders within your organisation involved from the outset is a critical success factor from my perspective.
Yep, absolutely. And I think again, looking back, this client, even before we got into the execution phase, right, there was a sufficient capacity set aside to do exactly the things that you called out, Nick, right? So get the security reviews in place, get the legal reviews in place, and there was, in my view, a thorough time set aside to do a full-fledged discovery or a pre-migration readiness checks, which involved assessing why do we need to migrate from ServiceNow to JSM, right? What problem we are trying to solve. and how are we going to solve this? So there was a lot of POCs and quick demos and use case scenario testing that happened in the sandbox environment that really laid down the road to success.
Okay, interesting. How long was the entire process from start to finish?
I think the entire process from start to finish, so we just trying to recollect the dates, but we executed the migration in less than 10 weeks, and I'd probably say it was a phase of 1 to 1.5 months of discovery and pre-readiness phase, where the client stakeholders were really involved in assessing the nitty-gritties of some very specific use case scenarios, etc.
Yeah, okay. I can really understand by everything that both of you have said why it would be kind of difficult to do this DIY. So, what would you say the advantages would be of choosing a partner like yourselves versus doing it DIY?
I think, in my view, when when we look at cloud migrations, right? So it's an initiative of its own, and while it's very common for most of the organizations to have an in-house tooling team, but it consumes the capacity, right? It needs a dedicated focus, and if you've got an in-house team who's going to continuously switch the context in terms of supporting the BAU influx of activities, as well as looking at executing this cloud migration, it's going to cause a lot of uh, uh, it might cause a lot of delays, and especially involving solution partners like ourselves, is we can bring in the learnings from our prior experiences, not just locally but globally, right? So while we've got this local Atlassian practice, we've also got a global Atlassian practice. So it's all these learnings and thought leadership that comes into play, and that is where we can start adding value to the client, where we bring in our technical expertise and our collaborative partnership with Atlassian, with app vendors like yourselves, etc., into the mix. And as I said, bring the best of all the worlds together to drive some joint outcomes.
You said that really well. You summed that up really well. In my mind, it's that capacity and experience, additional capacity to make the change successful, and bringing the experience and what's worked well and what's not worked well on previous or similar migration journeys. And I think the third element from my perspective is a success measure from our perspective, at least anyway, is leaving a self-sustaining environment once our engagement is done. So who can, in that cross-functional team, who can we grab from your existing organisation to, work very closely with and impart our knowledge on, so when we leave, where the organisation can, take any changes forward in a self-sustaining manner. I think that's a really important element as well.
Yeah, nice. And I suppose, if they still had further things they wanted to migrate, or if they had further questions, they could always come back to you and ask,
Absolutely.
Can we get some more help? Yeah, nice. Fantastic. And what sort of pitfalls would you say that some organizations can fall into when we're talking about migration?
I think maybe the big one was the one that I touched on earlier about not engaging some of those internal stakeholders earlier. Mid, I'm sure you've probably got some other ones you want to touch on.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my view, security reviews, legal reviews, very, very important. Right at the beginning, involve them so that they get that peace of mind that once the move to cloud happens, it's not going to impact some of the security standards that an organization needs to be aware of. But obviously, along with that, what I've also seen is, if it is seen as a side project, So there's cloud migration, and again we've touched upon this in some of the previous questions, Ari. But it's really important that this cloud migration is not seen as a side project, right? Because if that becomes the case and there is not sufficient capacity set aside, the clients or the organizations would start feeling as if the migration is taking forever to complete. But it's this is something that really needs to be thought through. And as I said, having a good change management strategy is another thing, right? A lot of clients think that this is a very technical piece, which involves moving stuff from point A to point B, from one platform to another platform. But I think the change management strategy and the change management is really, really important. And it's not just having a clear communications plan that we are going to take the system down, we are going to be migrating it over the weekend, etc., etc. But after you migrate the data, after you move the user base, it's more about how do we enable the users. And it's not, again, in my view, not just documenting a bunch of steps and sharing it with the user base, but it's really more about engaging and really understanding the user base, working with the user base, and helping them get familiarized with the new set of enhanced user experience that they would start experiencing once they move to cloud.
And getting that feedback cycle is really important. Making sure
feedback cycle, yeah.
Hearing what's working well for them on the platform and what's not, and seeing what's in our control to change versus not. Having that really healthy dialogue with the end user is a really critical success factor.
And I should probably call that out as well, Nick. So, with this client of ours, once we migrated, there was a lot of training sessions that we had planned, as well as there was an open communication channel where we were getting some live feedback and we were making changes on the fly to the configurations that we had done and set up. And this was one of the other success factors that I could think of that really made us to move this client from onto a really new platform, and it was a completely different user experience for them.
Yeah, okay. Amazing. There must have been quite a few users of that platform as well, so there would have been a lot of data to move across, right?
Oh, of course, yes. And it was not just the data, right? It was, as I said, it was their processes as well, because one thing that that we really work together with this client of ours is defining, do we really want to just migrate the data and processes as is, or is this an opportunity to probably take a step back and see this as an opportunity to simplify some of the things, simplify some of the processes, etc. So there, as part of this pre-discovery or pre-migration readiness phase, we really were thinking about the ways of working and simplifying the ways of working.
Yeah, wow. So you really help them optimize what they're doing moving forwards by looking at the migration strategy holistically as an opportunity to basically examine everything as is and say, sometimes these processes aren't actually the right thing to be doing. We should be doing it this way. It's more optimal. You'll get much more done.
Yeah. And I think you spoke about that earlier. It shouldn't really be viewed as a tooling implementation. This is a change journey through the use of tooling and amplifying ways of working via that.
Yep, and especially it becomes all the more critical, Ari and Nick. In my view, any organization's Atlassian journey, given Atlassian tools are easily configurable, easily customizable, what you would start to see is all of these customizations happen inorganically or happen organically within an organization over the period of years. So it's really important to use this as an opportunity to see, do we really need all of these customizations now, right? We've got hundreds of different apps that we have installed. Do we need all of these now? How many of these apps are in use? Let's take a step back. Let's look at this holistically. Is there a better option available on once we move to cloud, etc., etc.?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you've also got to check whether when like what we've got, our apps, I know all of our apps are cloud fortified. They're all ready to migrate. But you've actually got to go in and engage with those existing relationships with those third-party vendors, find out where they're at, see if they're ready for migration as well. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of different touch points you're going to have throughout that migration.
Yep.
Okay. Cloud's been such a big topic for such a long period of time, but what would you say are some areas that cloud can help customers gain a competitive edge?
Well, I think you know, a, a lot of organizations these days are focusing on agility, right? They want to move things quickly into the hands of customers, etc. And that's where this, moving the applications and the infrastructure to cloud really helps, because that, in my view, takes a lot of the infrastructure management overhead and operational costs, etc., out of the way, and then that gives opportunity for organizations to redirect the capacity, energy, and expertise of the people to some other critical areas, right? So I think that, in my view, forms a real great use case for customizations and organizations to start thinking about moving to cloud, as well as like Atlassian, right? They've got this cloud first strategy in place, by virtue of which we are seeing a lot of investments and enhancements coming through on the cloud products first. And we've also seen some of these features are really limited to their cloud products. Like, these features are not available to the server or data center counterparts. So I think if we've got an organization willing to really tap onto some of these advantages, they should really be thinking about moving to cloud.
Yeah, okay. It makes a lot of sense. And I think you touched on this as well. Basically, what's happened over the last few years with everyone moving to, not everyone, nearly everyone moving to working remotely is, can your on-premises infrastructure keep up with working at a global level where everyone's working from home, using their own internet, trying to get into your systems, whereas with cloud you can do that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You always get the current version. You don't have to worry about end of life, end of support. You're always getting the most up-to-date version of the product with all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. And one such example, Ari, that I could probably think about, and it's worth bringing it up as we discuss some of the core functionalities which are available natively in the cloud. So with Atlassian products, one such example is automation for Jira, which is natively available on cloud. And we used this native functionality very, very heavily for this client of ours, in the sense because we were migrating their ITSM processes. So they had very stringent SLAs in place, mean time to acknowledgement, etc., etc., all of these success measures and SLAs. And via the automations that we were able to successfully configure, that resulted in this accelerated queue management, and that actually resulted in the incidents and the problem requests, etc., landing into the team space quite early enough. So I think, in my view, it's things like this, right? It may sound small, but they've got so big an impact that the SLA times for this particular client improved by nearly 30 to 35%
That's massive.
after moving and starting to use JSM as a platform.
Wow, that's a big change. Yeah, that's impressive. Well, I didn't have any other questions, but I was wanting to ask if there was anything you'd like to add.
I think, again, to recap, from a cloud migration perspective, really, really important for organizations to invest in this pre-migration discovery phase, right? Which is, and I know a lot of organizations might not be comfortable with this whole concept of discovery, but and that's why I use discovery and pre-migration readiness phase interchangeably, because it's not just responding to a set of questionnaire or set of questions, but it's really understanding the as-is landscape. Where do we want to go from there? As you rightly said, Ari, engaging with each of these market app vendors to see what sort of migration pathways are available, and really helping organizations to take some of the tough decisions around, if there is a situation where potentially we can't migrate some of the data once we move to cloud, then at least we know what the mitigations are when, whenever that happens.
Yeah. I think, from my perspective, migrating your applications to the cloud is no longer optional, and it's a bit like agile work practices is becoming more mainstream. And I think anyone looking to embark on a journey, I think Mitt's kind of woven the message in nicely through the past kind of half an hour or so. Is do it deliberately, so intentionally, like carve out the capacity and the investment and the time and space to really make this successful, but also understand the broader organisational context in which this is operating within, and making sure you don't lose sight of what you're trying to do, which is amplify ways of working in your organisation.
Got it. Well, that's been an awesome session. I'm, very thankful for both of your time. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to working with you into the future. It's great.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, Ari, and thanks for everyone listening.
Thank you so much, Ari.